Good morning, Level 2s. We are starting a new unit today, and that is digestion. So the first thing that I want you to do is just on a sheet of paper, I want you to draw a chart like this. It's a KWL chart, so I know you guys have done these before. In the first column, you can write down what you already know about the digestive system. So anything you already know, either words or phrases or functions. The next column is what I want to know. So, what have you always wondered about the digestive system, or what do you want to know more about? What do you want to learn? The last column you cannot do yet because we haven't learned it. So, you're going to leave this blank until I have you fill it in when we're all done with this unit, which won't be for a couple more days. I would like you to just take a picture of this and send it to me either through email or the Remind app. And that will be your warm-up for the digestive tract. So here is our PowerPoint. I think you guys will like this. The digestive system is interesting. It's kind of easy to connect with it because we digest things every single day. So you've already heard a lot of these organs, and we are going to get through just the upper GI tract here today. All right, so there's a couple different names for the digestive tract. We could call it the digestive system, the gastrointestinal system, the gastrointestinal tract. You could also call it the alimentary tract. And really, if you wanted to give it a simple definition, it's a tube that runs from the mouth all the way to the anus. So the exit where we would defecate from. That's obviously a very simple definition. If you wanted to use some vocabulary that goes hand in hand with this, one would be digestion. So digesting is us being able to break down foods, and we do that in a variety of ways. And the reason that we want to break down food is that so we can make it into nutrients that the body can use. So it's got to be small enough, it's got to be able to be used by your body. Another vocabulary word that goes hand in hand with this unit is nutrition. So the level 3s are learning about this right now. This is the process of either providing or obtaining the food necessary in order to just maintain health and to grow. So we actually have just 5 functions of the digestive system as a whole. And these are, it's kind of like steps. So this is in order. The first step is called prehension. If you've ever heard of like a prehensile tail, those are those monkeys that can like hang from their tail. Really awesome. I wish we could do that if we had a tail. Anyways, it just means to like grip. So their tails are able to grip. In this case, prehension means we can grip our food. And animals, they don't have fingers, right? I mean, maybe if you're talking about like a gorilla or something, but dogs and cats, they can't really grasp with their fingers like this, but they can use their lips and their teeth to grab things. So I am not going to show you this video, but trust me, it's adorable. Make sure you go and click on this link. You can find this PowerPoint on Moodle under digestion, or maybe it says digestive. So make sure you click on this and it's going to show you exactly what I'm talking about as far as grasping something with the lips and teeth. The next step is mastication. Mastication is a fancy word for chewing. So that's what we do as well, right? We chew. We grind down that food using our teeth, and definitely make sure you watch this video because it's hilarious. So make sure you go and click on that. Again, I'm not going to show that here on this link. Okay. The next step is chemical digestion. And so we'll talk about what organs are responsible for that. Number 4 is absorbing the nutrients in water. And then number 5, you can't keep it all in, right? We've got to eliminate it. We've got to get rid of it. So we're going to defecate or pass stool or feces, anything that our body couldn't use. All right, some different species. It depends on what the animal is going to eat. So you guys have probably heard of herbivores and carnivores. An herbivore is something that eats just plants. So cows just eat plants, sheep, goats, horses. Carnivores eat meat. So something that would just eat meat would be something like a lion or a tiger. When you start getting into domestic animals, that can be a little bit different. One example would be cats and dogs. So cats are called obligate carnivores, and that means if they had their choice, they literally would eat meat, chicken, mice, maybe some, I don't know, insects, things like that. That's all they would eat if they had the choice. Dogs, on the other hand, they are opportunistic, so they just look for opportunity. So the really weird thing about this is if you've ever seen a cat eat a mouse, a lot of times you'll see them leave a few things behind. They actually don't ingest it. And if you look really closely, it's kind of disgusting, but a lot of times it is the digestive tract of the mouse, and that's because they are obligate carnivores. They do not want to eat that vegetation, that plant matter that the mouse ate. So they'll actually leave out the digestive tract. Dogs, you know what dogs are like. You know what wolves are like. They're just going to swallow that mouse whole. They could care less if they're eating a little bit of vegetables. They're not as picky. Or we could combine an herbivore and a carnivore and get an omnivore, which is what most humans are, unless you're going to be a vegetarian, which would be an herbivore. So if we eat plants and meat, we would be an omnivore. Bears are a great example of this. A bear and a raccoon, they would eat meat and plants, berries, seeds, things like that. Okay. Now the other thing that is going to vary is what kind of digestive tract they have. And so we're going to focus on monogastric animals. So mono means, hopefully you said one. Gastric means, hopefully you said stomach. So a single stomach versus a hindgut fermenter versus ruminants and versus avians, which are birds. All right, so we're going to start with monogastric. They just have one simple old stomach. That's what humans have too, is just one stomach. We're monogastric. So let's start with the upper GI tract. Gosh, that looks like Rocky with his long tongue. I don't know, I think Rocky might have him beat. The upper GI tract includes the mouth, the pharynx, which is your throat, the esophagus, and the stomach. So let's look a little bit closer. We'll start with the mouth. So if you think of your mouth, we have lips, we have cheeks. We've talked about our hard and soft palate before when we were talking about teeth. Go ahead and take your tongue, and I want you to reach as far back towards your throat as you can, and you'll feel it's kind of squishy. And then if you take your tongue forward on the roof of your mouth towards your teeth, towards your incisors, you'll feel hard ridges. That's your hard palate. So that's part of your mouth. We also have salivary glands. So the saliva that we produce are from glands. We have a tongue and we have teeth. Our combining forms for the mouth are oro and stomato. So salivary glands, that's what you see right here. That is going to produce saliva for us, and saliva actually does two things. Saliva actually starts to break food down. There's this gross experiment where you can like take a cracker and, this is gross, spit on it, okay, like a good bit of spit, and then you go back, like, I don't even remember how long it was, a day or two, and you look at it and it actually broke that cracker down. So yes, part of that was just because of the moisture, but there's actually enzymes in your saliva that break food down. The other thing that saliva does is it lubricates our food so that it slides down easier. If you've ever like swallowed a piece of a chip and it wasn't real soggy when you swallowed it and you can feel it scraping all the way down, there wasn't enough saliva around it. It was not well lubricated for you to swallow that. We have our tongue, and our tongue is actually used for two things. It actually, if you think about it, and when you put a piece of food in your mouth, it doesn't just sit on your tongue. You actually use your tongue and move it from one side to the other. A really easy way to picture that is if you ever had a toothache, let's say your toothache was on the left side, you will notice that you're actually really cognizant or thinking, oh, let me use my tongue to move that food to the right-hand side so I don't hurt my tooth. The other thing that the tongue does is if you go ahead and picture swallowing, even when you swallow your saliva, your tongue actually pushes it towards the back of your throat so that you can swallow it. All right, we'll talk a little bit about teeth. Enamel. If you remember back to bones, we said bones were the second hardest part of our body. Enamel is the first. So enamel is this covering on the outside of your tooth. Okay. When you have a cavity, if you've ever had a cavity before and you had to get it filled at the dentist, that's because you have a hole in your enamel somewhere. A lot of times that's people who sip on soda all day or caffeine all day is really good at breaking down your enamel. Even if you like chew gum a lot, it actually breaks down at the enamel because you are producing saliva to move that gum around, and that saliva can actually break down some of the enamel as well. Gingiva are our gums. So our gingiva is just what surrounds our teeth. And then we have some pretty cool teeth shapes. So if you look at these two pictures here, we have a carnivore and an herbivore. So our carnivores are right here. If you look at these teeth, they are definitely pointy. And if you look, they're actually kind of curved back towards the throat. So it actually can grip that prey, whatever the animal might be. It grips it and then it will tear it and cut and shred back on those molars. If you look at the herbivore, you can see that it's really all flat. All those teeth are flat, and what they do is they just grind. They just grind back and forth on that plant material and grains, whatever it might be, grass, hay, grains, pellets, things like that. All right, so combining forms for teeth would be dento, denti, and odonto. And we have looked at this too, the different types of teeth. Our incisors are up front here. So pretend incisors on this little puppy dog. It's actually people teeth. But incisors, that is what's used to grasp something. Grasp. Canines are, a lot of people call them like vampire teeth. They are used for tearing. So they'll like pull a piece of meat off. And they're very, very pointed. Premolars are for cutting. So premolars are right here. And then molars, whether you're an herbivore or a carnivore, are used for grinding. We have our pharynx. The pharynx is a fancy word for throat. And the interesting thing about our pharynx is the pharynx is part of the digestive tract and the respiratory tract, because we can actually pass air through our mouth and into our throat and then into our trachea. But we're talking about digestion, so the pharynx is going to direct food into our esophagus. And our combining form here is pharyngo. So that's pretty easy. Pharynx, pharyngo. If I look a little bit closer at this, here is my tongue, and here is my pharynx right here. And when I swallow, it's going to go in my mouth. My tongue is going to push it back, and it's going to go into my esophagus. The other choice would be into my trachea, which we wouldn't want that, right? If we swallowed our spaghetti noodles and they went into our trachea, you would have spaghetti noodles in your lungs, and you definitely wouldn't be able to breathe very well. That would be called aspirating. Our esophagus. Our esophagus is after the pharynx and before the stomach. It's just a tube that your food just slides down. We'll talk more about that, but it's just a connection. Directs that food right to the stomach, and our combining form is pretty darn easy here too. Esophago. Last slide, our stomach. We are going to be at the end of the esophagus and connect to the start of the small intestine. The stomach is for storage, so it's going to sit in your stomach a little bit. And what happens there is we have hydrochloric acid in our stomach, and that is used to break down the food as it sits there. The combining form for this is gastro. Just to give you a little bit of an idea of that acid in your stomach, if you've ever had, I call it a wet burp, you know, those nasty burps where you burp and stuff comes up into your throat or even your mouth a little bit, that's called reflux, and that is actually stomach contents. So the material in your stomach came all the way up your esophagus and into your mouth. And if you can picture like how bitter and almost like, I don't want to use the word spicy, I'm just grossing you out, but that is actually acid. So if you've ever heard of acid reflux, that is the same concept. So your stomach contents that's mixed with that acid comes up your esophagus. It gives you heartburn. You could have those nasty burps. That's actually something that Ryan had. We had to take him to Hershey, and they took it was like a live x-ray, and we gave him a bottle that had dye in it. And when he swallowed it, you could see it going down his esophagus. And then all of a sudden we were watching it and it went whoop, right back up. And so he was refluxing, and that's why he was so irritable and cranky when he was drinking, is because he was hurting. It was going into his esophagus and burning. So again, these are all monogastric stomachs that we're talking about here. And for our next lecture, we'll get into the lower GI tract. So wrapping up here, we're going to do that KWL before we did this lecture. The other thing I want you to do is something that's in your mailboxes. I'd like you to do these 2 sheets. So one is Know Your Guts. Okay. You do not have all these notes yet. Some of them you do, some of you don't. So be a super sleuth and look on the internet to help you out a little bit. You probably just need to look at a diagram on the internet to fill in those little bubbles there. And then a little word search. That's all you need to do. So I would like the K and W of the KWL chart, and then these two worksheets, just send me a picture.